Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining Truth in Sports podcast. It's your boy, Coach PK Cherry here. I'm blessed to be able to bring this podcast to you. This is the first episode. And we're going to, and the whole point of this podcast, man, is really have some conversations around sports, world issues, social issues, and give it all from a biblical and godly worldview perspective. Hopefully, drop some gems and some wisdom and just give people within the game of basketball and other parts of life just the opportunity to let the world know about what they're doing, how God is using them, and how they're being a blessing to others. So today on my first podcast, I have Coach Bryant Tucker Sr. All right, he is former head women's basketball coach at Oak Hill Christian College. I believe that's in Bemidji, Minnesota. We gonna have to figure out where that is. All right. He also was an instructor at the university as well, and he's also the former varsity coach at J.C. Harmon High School out in Kansas City, Missouri. So Coach Tucker, thanks for coming to the podcast today. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Coach. I mean, it's an honor to be your first guest, I believe,
Yes,
on your
sir.
podcast.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, I'm more blessed to be with you and be on your podcast than I mean, it's I'm elated. So, I definitely appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've been blessed to been able to jump on a lot of podcasts lately and gain. God will enlarge your territory and get you greater spheres of influence. So whenever you get a blessing like that, I try to pay it forward, right? And people that I've had built relationships with, give them opportunity to tell their story. So thanks for coming. So just to start, obviously we talked about you as the former head coach at Oak Hill Christian College. Tell us a little bit more about your basketball journey, maybe starting from maybe as a player on to where we're at today.
Wow. Okay. Um, what's really strange is that I didn't play high school basketball.
Okay.
I actually played JV basketball at a Christian college in Kansas City, Missouri. That's where
Okay.
I'm originally from.
Yeah.
But I started coaching actually while I was in high school. And
Okay.
so I
Yeah.
think there's a belief that people are like, well, if you haven't played the game, you can't coach the game. Well, I've been coaching this game probably since I was 15, 16 years old,
Mm.
and
Yes.
so
Yes. Yes.
even though I didn't play at a high level, I mean, I've been coaching for almost 30 years since I was a
Right. Right.
teenager.
Right.
I'm
Right.
sitting in math class and I'm drawing up plays. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but I started coaching, at the YMCA level,
Yeah.
and then I kind of like, yeah, okay, this is all right, and so then I kind of grew into coaching summer basketball, creating
Yeah.
my own programs,
Okay.
and just building that up, building up youth sports in Kansas City, and then I got into. What's strange is this. I always thought I could just go somewhere and coach
Right.
without going to school. And so
Mm.
I kept telling people, I don't need a degree. I don't need a degree. I don't want to coach high school ball.
Right.
Um, so just kept coaching on the summer circuit. Then I went to a Christian school for
Uh-huh.
seminary.
Okay.
After I played at a JV at one, I went to seminary at another school,
Okay.
and so then I was able to coach there, and I got free tuition,
There you
but I was
go.
able to coach, and so I got a taste of coaching, in school
Mm-mm.
basketball, and
Yeah.
got to a championship game. We lost in a championship. I remember that, man. So,
Mm.
but then I started moving up the ranks and start realizing, okay, I kind of like this thing a little bit
Right.
more than what I thought.
Right.
So I've coached homeschool basketball. I've coached minor league basketball.
Yeah.
I actually owned a minor league team in the ABA, and so we played
Okay.
in the ABA
Yeah.
for 10 years.
Okay.
I coached it for probably six of those 10. I coached women in the WBCBL, which
Okay.
was a minor league for women. So I did that. Then I coached some middle school, got to JC Harmon, loved it. Um, Coaching minor league women was
Mm.
different than coaching guys because I've always coached
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
And and I always tell people that God is always has a plan for you, right? Because
Mm.
I said I would never coach women unless the check was good. And
Right, right, right.
so I started coaching women for free. So
God's
until I
last
got
on
to
our
Harmon, of
plates.
course, and I got paid to coach at Harmon, and then I said after 2 years, I'm like, okay, let me try the college level because I
Yeah.
felt like my experience would take me there. So with that, I mean that brought me up to Oak Hills Christian in Bemidji, Minnesota.
Bemidji. Okay. All right. Now, where exactly is that at?
So it's about 3.5 hours north of Minneapolis,
Wow.
but
Okay.
2.5 hours south of the Canadian border.
Wow. Okay. That sounds cold.
It's very cold. We didn't have a bad winter this
Okay.
year. It wasn't terrible,
Okay.
but the previous 2 years, I mean, when you're thinking, 30 below and 10, 15 feet of snow,
That's like,
yeah,
yeah. Woo.
yeah, that's not
Man.
great.
Man. So originally from Kansas City. So obviously, going from Kansas City, Missouri to Minnesota, obviously that's a kind of a culture shock, I'd say.
Let's just say, yeah, it's definitely, Bemidji is about a town of about 21,000
Uh-huh.
during the academic year because we do have a state college here.
Okay.
But you go
Yeah.
from Kansas City um, to where it's a 500,000 people,
Right. Right.
to
Right.
21,000. And the diversity level is a lot different
Of
in
course.
Bemidji than it was in Kansas City. But the people are gracious. People are lovely here in a small town.
Yeah.
Very receptive to learning
Yeah.
different backgrounds and different cultures. So
That's
I
awesome.
was able
That's
I was able to grow and learn a little bit. I still have some professors that want me to go ice fishing. I'm like, yeah,
I'm
no,
man.
yeah,
You
that's
ain't
not
for
happening.
that. That's awesome. What did you teach over at Oak Hill Christian College?
I taught African American studies.
Okay.
I taught fitness for life, and
Okay.
then being a former college basketball official, I taught officiating 101.
Wow. Okay. 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 Now, tell me a little bit. So you mentioned minor league women's team and the ABA team. I remember, having when toward the I had hurt myself playing professionally. I want to say probably in 2011, and I went home and I was rehabbing, and I was presented with an opportunity to have an ABA team. So I said, well, it's a great opportunity for me to, get back to playing, actually have some ownership of a team. So I remember I had an ABA team. We were called the Boston Conquerors, out of Boston for about 4 or 5 years. Tell me a little bit about your ABA experience.
So, with the ABA, it was just one of those things. I had a good friend of mine who owned the team first. And so, he came to me and he's like, Brian, you coach basketball, know basketball. Hey,
Yep.
come manage my team. And I'm like, I have no clue to what I'm doing in managing a minor league basketball team. So
Right, right,
we
right.
struck out. We started the team, did well actually the first year,
Yep.
um, and then he gave it up.
Mm.
And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, cool. All right. So 2 years later, I believe I went in and said, hey, I want to buy the market. And
Mm,
so me
okay.
and my
Yeah.
wife, we went in, bought the market, and we started out as the Missouri Rhythm.
Okay.
We
Yep.
started out in January, and we were just like, okay, let's just put a team together. We're just going to play road games, see how it goes.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we went out. I mean, we were actually pretty good. Players are good, but I mean, part of it was coaching. I mean, I'm gonna put that out there. You know,
Of course.
um, but we stayed the course. We ran that
Yeah.
team for about 10 years. We
Wow. Okay.
did move locations. So then we went from being the Missouri Rhythm to the Kansas City Soul. And
Yep.
so
Yep. I remember that team.
I know we had a good logo too.
Yeah, we did. I remember. I definitely remember the Kansas City Soul. That's for sure. I know
Yes.
we obviously were in different regions, but no, I remember. And to have an ABA team for 10 years, that's definitely an accomplishment. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of expenses, overheads, especially referee fees, which are pretty high. We were able to have our team for about 5 years in Boston, and which to this day was the longest running ABA program in Boston. But I think some of the biggest challenges with the guys, with the players that we have, and getting players to buy in, getting players to commit. Did you have any of those type of issues with the guys that you were working with?
Very few. I think for me, just coming in and letting them know where I stood.
Yeah,
Everything was up front. It's
yeah,
You're not going to get paid a lot, and we had it to where if you sell tickets, you get paid,
right,
and so you get a percentage of the tickets. The other percentage goes to the team.
right,
Um, because I was footing the bill for a lot, and
right,
so it was up to them to share the word and on social media and get their friends and
right,
family to come in. So it's like, hey, you're going to make money if you invite people. you
right,
know I'm going to cut games if we don't have the money. But also for me, I was supplementing my business with refereeing games.
right.
So we
Yeah,
may have a home game and I'm out in Nebraska, reffing a
referee.
college game.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
so but it did get to the point where my wife was like, hey, we're not making any money, we're breaking even,
right.
which is good. We're not losing money, but we're also not making money. And so she was like, hey, you got to make a decision.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, of course, to keep my
yeah.
home in order, that decision was, all right,
Right,
well,
right,
hey, at the end of this season, this is going to be our last one.
right,
So,
right, right.
um, but I had great guys. The biggest thing I think, even then, even to the way I coach now, is you buy into playing defense.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to play defense, you have no reason to play for me. you
Mm,
know.
yeah.
And so just getting my guys to understand that, and I had great guys that came in, and it was always defense first,
Right,
and they bought
right,
into that, and that's why
right.
we were successful. Um, we did really well. I think the lowest we ever had was a 500 season.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
never had a losing season, which is pretty good, if I
Yeah.
say so.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it sounds like, I think you were lucky. I think also, um, you had a little bit more coaching experience than the coach that we had. The coach was pretty much one of my best friends. We were in our probably early 30s at the time, and having guys who are a lot who many were our peers, playing on the team. So that we struggled to kind of um, try to trade that culture accountability, simply because of we were looked at not in a position of authority. But looking back, we probably should have got someone from the outside, to coach, and had a little bit different vibe. But I think, for us, and for me, not only for myself to try to get back playing, I wanted to give guys an opportunity as well. And we had a lot of guys, outside of myself, come from the program, and get to play overseas. Some still, playing professionally to this day. So like you said, God works out the things He wants, how He wants, and I think there's lessons learned, from all those things for sure.
Absolutely. And again, I will say I had some help, because one of my athletes was a former NFL tight end.
Mm,
And so sometimes he had to bring in some perspective on accountability,
mm, yeah,
responsibility, as
yeah,
well as some, he helped with some discipline part too,
yeah,
because he would say,
yeah.
hey, well, this is not how you would talk to a coach in the NFL.
Right,
You know,
right,
this is how
right,
we did things. And I may go to him and say, hey, well, what do you think about this?
right,
And he
right,
would tell me, hey, he's like, hey, when we messed up on this is what we had to do. Now
right.
transform it into basketball. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
because guys were older than me. Well, a few guys were older than me, but pretty much everybody else was still younger than me.
yeah.
And, now, he's 6'8", 220,
Mm,
240.
yeah.
Now, and I'm only like 5'8", 150,
Right, right,
and
right,
I'm
right.
still like, hey, man, like this is what we got to do.
Right,
But it was a
right.
respect factor.
Of
But I
course. Yeah,
let him know day one, this is how we do things here. And if you
yeah.
don't like it, go play somewhere else.
That's it. That's it. That's it. So yeah. So defense first. So tell me a little bit about coaching over at JC Harmon High School. in the culture that you kind of built while you was there, and then kind of transferring that over to Oak Hill Christian College.
Okay. So going to JC Harmon was a pleasure. Harmon is in a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood.
Okay.
Most of the students, I believe, the school is like 90%, 95% Hispanic.
Okay. Hmm.
Um, and honestly, it was a bad program.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the year before I got there, they only won 4 games.
Mm.
And so it had been probably 15, 20 years before they actually won several games,
Mm.
more than the 4 that they had. So they were happy winning 4.
Right. That was up season for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Um, so I got a buddy of mine from the area in Kansas City, Kansas, brought him out of retirement and said, "This is what we got to do.
Mm.
We had talent, but we didn't have the best talent."
Right.
And so to combat the lack of talent, it was we got to play defense,
Yeah.
you know. And people don't realize that excuse me, coaching girls is so much different than
Oh,
coaching.
yeah. 100%.
But if you can get them to believe in themselves
Yeah.
and let them know that you believe in them and trust them, they'll do whatever.
Yeah.
And so that first season, we came out and we won 9 games. So we doubled the win total from the previous year. A lot of people say, "Well, you only won 9 games." I'm like, "Well, have you seen their record for the past 15 years?"
Right.
So winning
Right.
9 games,
That's
that's
amazing.
a win,
Right.
And so the girls played hard. They were great. I had one girl, I mean, like, bless her heart. Her name was Jada. And so the previous coaches had said, Jada, whatever you do, when you rebound the ball, just pass it. Do not
Mm.
dribble or we'll bench you. But she was
Mm.
the best athlete. And so I said, okay. I watched her film prior. I said, this is what I want you to do. I teach everybody to dribble
Right.
from the 1
Right.
to the 5. You
Right.
have to dribble. You have to be a threat. And so this poor girl, every time she got the ball, like she would just take off. And she was like a bull in a china shop. Like,
Mm.
so I'm like, Jada, pass the ball. And all she had this floppy ponytail. And all you see is a ponytail just flopping.
Flying by.
We're like, Jada's not passing the ball. And so, but she learned and she got better as the year progressed. And she
Yeah.
understood if you make a mistake, I'm not pulling you out of the game.
Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
want you to make mistakes early. And
Right.
so, so we were able to win 9 games. It was a great opportunity to coach at the high school level
Yeah.
and see success. And I think that's one thing that God has allowed me to do in my career is be successful in everything that I do,
Yeah.
especially in the coaching realm. Um, and then after 2 years, we hit the COVID year there. We
Mm.
definitely struggled in the COVID year
Yeah.
with kids being at home, trying to do
Yeah.
work at home,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and so we fell off the second year, which was kind of bad because we were on the upswing,
Yeah.
and then now COVID hit, and it was like we were really looking to go into first or second place in our conference the
Mm.
second year, and
Yeah.
so I was blessed enough my first year that I got coach of the year. And so because we made such a good turnaround and it's because of the girls. So yeah, second year, man, COVID hit and I'm like, oh, this sucks. You know.
Mm. Mm.
And then you got, really some kids that were in the urban core, they didn't understand responsibility of getting their work done at home. And like
Right.
even if you tell
Right.
them, you gotta get your work done, and I mean it was tough.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
So at the end of the second year, I'm like, man, you know what? I think I'm ready for the collegiate level.
Yeah.
I went back to school during COVID. I was fortunate enough to get my master's degree during COVID.
Yeah.
So I got that. I'm like, because you know how it is. You get a bachelor's degree, and normally it was this is all you need is a
Right.
bachelor's degree. I'm
Right.
like, cool, I'm set. Then it was, oh yeah, you need a master's degree. And it's like, oh man, this sucks.
Man, they keep raising the bar.
They keep raising the bar, and so I'm like, all right. During COVID, I'm just like, all I'm doing is just teaching online classes. So I'm like, all right, let me get my master's degree. So I got my master's degree in like 8 months,
Yeah.
knocked it out. And then I'm like, all right, I need to make a move. And so then I headed up to, got the job in Bemidji, Minnesota. I'm like, man, God has a sense of humor because we were praying for like palm trees, beaches,
Right,
warm
right,
weather.
right, right.
We were like Florida, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
Arizona, and God said, "No, I'm sending you up north." And we're like,
Mm.
so yeah, so I had to come up north and coach at Oak Hill. So it's and coaching at a Christian college is definitely different than the
Mm.
public sector.
Yeah. Well, talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about your time in Oak Hill, and what was those differences. Maybe why you selected, to take that job, and kind of the success that you've had, while you was there.
In life, we have the direction we want to go, but God always has the direction He wants you to go.
Of course, yeah,
And we
yeah.
want to follow our course and set our own course, but then God says, no, that is not the course you're going to take.
Mm,
And I feel like I didn't choose Oak Hills. Oak Hills
mm,
chose me. Um,
mm.
because I never heard of Bemidji, Minnesota. And
Right.
I could like just talking to you, you never heard of Bemidji, Minnesota.
Nah, I never. Nope.
So, and
Nope.
even if you did a poll, I guarantee you it might be one person out of 100 that's actually heard of Bemidji, Minnesota. And so, it's very interesting because the job, when I looked up jobs and we were applying for jobs, this job was setting for like 4 or 5 months.
Mm.
And I look at it and I'm like, I can't even pronounce this place. I'm not going. I don't want to
Right,
even
right,
coach at a
right,
Christian college.
right.
I mean, I had a couple little, what they call it, language issues,
Of
every
course.
now and then.
Right,
So,
right, right,
because, when you coaching every now and then. And so I was like, yeah, Christian college. I don't know about that one.
right.
And so finally I said, man, this job is still sitting. So
Mm,
I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to apply. I'm just going to send the athletic director my resume. So I
mm.
sent him my resume. And what's strange is this: I had actually sent this athletic director an email, let's say in March
Okay,
of 21.
okay.
He never responded. The
Mm.
job was still sitting in May.
Wow, 2 months. 2 months later.
Yeah, so I sent him another email with my resume. He
Mm.
called me in an hour.
Wow.
And so I answered the phone and I'm like, and he's like, hey, this is Jeremy Anderson with Oak Hills Christian College. I'm like, why is he calling me? Like, who is this guy?
Right, right, right,
And I forgot like that I sent my resume. Like I wasn't even thinking about it. I didn't like care because I'm like, here you go. And if
right,
he
right.
calls, he calls. And so we literally talked for about an hour,
Okay, wow.
probably over an hour. I'm sitting in
Mm.
my car because you sit in your car, then all of a sudden you drop service. Like, well, I didn't want to drop service, so we
You just
talked.
sat there, yeah.
And so finally he was like, hey man, do you want to meet with my board? I think you would be great. Okay,
Mm.
sure. Week later, I chatted with their board via Zoom,
Yep.
um, like on let's say a Thursday. Um, he sent me the contract the next day.
Wow. Wow.
And so I remember one guy who was the dean of students. He was like, Brian, I just want to tell you that Bemidji is not really culturally diverse. And he said, how do you navigate that? And I said, you know what? I'm a chameleon.
Mm.
I can fit in anywhere. And
Right.
I think that's the best part about being a coach and
Mm.
being a leader and also following God, because see, God will
Mm.
allow you and put you in places that man can't open the door for you. And
Mm.
so within my ministry, I know sports is my ministry, but then also me being diverse. I'm not just saying, hey, I want to like, let's say preach and teach or just coach in the urban core
Right.
of, the African American community or people of color. Wherever you put me, I'm going to fit in because I
Right.
feel like I can be a blessing anywhere.
Right.
And so, yeah, so my first year, unfortunately, we didn't have a team. Um, and so I spent the entire first year recruiting, and I recruited
Okay.
12 young ladies. The second year we came out, and I thought about this the other day. What's odd, my very first year here, um, we won 9 games,
Mm.
which is the same amount of games that I won when I was at JC Harmon in my first
Wow.
year.
Wow.
And the previous year, they won 6 here at Oak Hills,
Uh-huh.
but they beat the same team 5 times, which was the
Mm.
COVID year. So I'm like, okay, I can
Okay,
maybe
right,
give
right,
you 1
right,
or 2 of those. I'm not
right.
giving you all 5. So I'm gonna say
Right.
maybe I won like 3 games, you know?
Right, right,
And so yeah, so I mean, on record, I guess it was 6, but like really, you didn't play anybody.
right.
Um, but Oak Hills, the history of women's basketball has not been successful, and so
Mm.
we probably had the most successful year
Yeah.
that the school has. We scored 100 points, which the women's program never did.
Wow.
Um, I had 3 female athletes at different times score over 30 points in a game,
Wow.
which never happened
Right,
before.
right.
I mean, we would put on a show. I think it was one game, coach, that we were down by 25 at half.
Mm.
25. Went in the locker room. I gave my, let's get it back. Let's, at the end of the third quarter, let's get it down to single digits. Let's get it
Right.
to half. I mean, let's work. Let's do the small things.
Yeah.
They're like, nah, coach, we got you. Coach, we came back. One, we tied the game at the end of the third, and
Mm.
we came back and won the game by 10.
That's crazy. 35-point turnaround.
Probably
Wow.
it was the most exciting game ever at this school,
Wow. I'm
guys and
sure.
girls. And but my girls played hard. And that's one thing I can give them is that no matter what, whether they agree with the play that I called or maybe the coaching style of we're not going to shoot 25 threes a game. What I
Yeah.
want you to do is put your head down and play defense. And that's what they did. And people were amazed on how well we did in the first year. Really, technically, it was the first year of the program
Yeah.
again. Well, I guess besides, yeah, because we took that year off in between the last season. And so
Yeah.
them coming in all freshmen. We went down and we played a school called Crown University, which is a Division III NCAA school. We
Yeah.
took them into double overtime in the playoffs. And the only reason why they beat us is because we got injured and we fouled out.
Mm.
Uh, but what's crazy is the same team beat us by 35 early in the season.
Wow.
And we're like, we're not losing to them again. And so
Right.
they only beat us by 6 points in double
Okay.
overtime. And that was
Wow.
another game, coach. We were down, I think, by 18 at half.
Okay. Yeah.
And we go in the locker room, we talk about it. It's like, is this how we want to end our season? Is this what we do?
Mm. Right.
I'm like, no,
Right.
this is not who we are.
Right.
And so if this is not who we are, what are we gonna do? That's it.
Yeah.
They're like, coach, and I love my girls because they're, coach, we got you. I don't have to say anything else
Yeah.
because they know. And so yeah, so it was definitely a great experience at Oak Hills. And right now, with my time being up at Oak Hills, I feel like I'm ready for the next chapter and the next level
Okay.
because I think I can improve any program in America.
Yeah.
If given the opportunity, I know I can improve. If I've seen a lot of schools, they have 2 wins, they have 4 wins. I'm like, I could coach that and get better in my sleep. I
Right.
don't
Right. Right.
I don't need 6 months. I don't need 2 years to rebuild.
Right.
Give me one season. I guarantee you we'll win more games. But so I'm just waiting on God to open that door for me.
So are you looking to go on the men's side or stay on the women's side? Are you open to both?
you know, so now I've kind of flipped and said I would never go back to coaching guys unless the check was bigger.
Right.
So I think in today's age, and as you know, as a player, like male players, I mean, everybody wants to be Steph Curry, everybody wants to be KD. Like
Yeah.
guys, honestly, know they know more than the coach,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so I think it's coaching the mental game, the mental aspect of it to guys is harder than girls
Hundred
because
percent. 100%. Yeah.
you know, I
Hundred
mean,
percent.
now you have Angel Reese, you got Caitlin Clark. I mean, you got Diane. I mean, so you got more female athletes that are becoming high profile,
Yeah.
but you still don't have female athletes who think they're going to be Steph Curry and all that type of stuff. And
Right.
they're more willing, in my opinion, more willing to listen, adhere to the game, adhere to the coach, and as long as they believe in you and you
Yeah.
believe in them, I think it's less stress of coaching basketball. Now you're going to have the other stuff, coaching girls,
Yeah.
the drama, the rolling of the eyes, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But they're going to focus, and I think they're
Right.
going to focus a lot better. So yeah, I would probably not go back to coaching guys unless the check was big.
I gotcha. Well, let's talk about. I know you talked about coming up coaching and on the summer circuit. Obviously, things as it relates to summer basketball has changed, probably dramatically, from that time to where we are now. And you talk about the issues, with players not wanting to be coached, or having a sense of entitlement. As someone who is in the training game, and who's also coached AAU, is you definitely you see that not only out of players but also parents, and I truly believe a lot of what the parents are teaching, all right, is this sense of entitlement, this prideful spirit, this all about me, or trying to gain clout through the game. And then that is how these kids are being raised, right? And there's a lack of respect for authority. There's a lack of loyalty, which we see with players jumping from team to team on the grassroots level. And then we see the immediate impact of that mindset and on the college level with the transfer portal. So what would you speak on as it relates to the culture of grassroots basketball today?
It's a lot different than when I coached, summer
Yeah,
ball, 15, 20 years ago.
yeah,
Kind of like what you said, you see a lot of, parents like, man, I don't want to play for this team. I want to play for, this team, even
yeah.
though I'm paying, let's just say $500 a month and my kid's sitting on the bench, they want to
Right.
attach that team name with
Mm-hmm.
their kid. And
Right.
so now,
Right.
when they're doing the little mom groups or the little dad groups and
Mm-hmm.
what my son plays for. Does he
Mm-hmm.
play? Well, he doesn't really play,
He just
and they don't
sits.
realize that they're basically paying for the A squad to travel.
Right.
I know
Right.
a couple of
Right.
teams
Right.
like the A squad doesn't pay anything because
Right.
the B, C, D, E, and F
Yeah.
teams
It's
are
covering
actually
all the
paying for them.
expenses. Yep.
Yeah, and it's like
Yep.
your kid's not playing; they're not growing. Do
Yep.
you want your kid to grow, or you just want to be attached to this program?
Right.
And
Right.
so
Right.
that's annoying to me, especially like when parents they will call me or text me and say, "Hey, so and so gave me your name and number. What do you think about this team?" I will only do that for certain people, but the rest of them, I'm like,
Mm.
"You're calling me, no offense, but it's like you're calling me for free advice."
Right.
I've been around a while. I
Right.
mean, my time is worth something,
Of course. Right.
because
100%.
when I'm trying to sell T-shirts for a fundraiser for my girls, is like you didn't buy a T-shirt, but yet you want
That's
me
some
to,
free information. Yep.
yeah, you
Yep.
want me to evaluate your film for free. No,
Right.
I do not. Don't
No.
send me film because I'm not
Right.
evaluating film for free,
Right.
because it's time consuming.
A hundred
Um,
percent. 100%.
so uh, I'm I'm a fan of summer basketball, but also I think there's other ways than spending $10,000 a summer.
Oh, 100
Um,
percent. 100
y-
percent.
you can easily, like, if somebody sends me film because they're interested in my school, that's a different, whole different process.
Right, of
If
course.
you're in the summer, if and I try to tell people, you know what? If you know what school you want to go to, clip your own film and send it to that particular school.
Yep.
Send it to the head coach, send it to the assistant coach. I mean, send it to a couple people because sometimes the head coaches don't check their emails.
Of course. Yep.
Um, Coach, I would have people send me links to where they're playing at, but then they want me to pay for the link. I'm like,
That's crazy, huh?
is mom
Isn't
and
that
dad like
crazy?
paying for the link, or like who's paying for it? Like, because
Right.
if I get 20 links at $15, $20 a pop, Oak Hills wasn't they're not a rich school.
Right. Right. That's not in the budget.
So yeah, and I mean, I'm not paying for it. So just tell me what your stats are after the game, because I'm not paying for that.
Right. Yep.
So they have to invest in themselves. But I think there's a place for summer basketball.
Yep.
Um, But most of these teams, it's really a money grab, and
100%.
I think they're taking advantage of athletes, especially now since the female game is elevating.
Yes.
There's more there's more guys coming out now trying to take advantage of the females.
Mm,
If you
mm,
if you
mm.
kind of think about a little bit too, coach, if you think about
That's
5 or 10 years ago, how many guys did you see out recruiting female athletes for summer teams?
very few. Very
Very few.
few. Very few.
Yep.
Maybe
So
one in every community.
yeah, but
Yeah.
now, I mean, every male coach is trying to get a girls team, or a
Yeah.
young ladies team,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
you wasn't doing that 10 years ago.
Right.
And I have to
Right.
admit, like 10 years ago, I could care less about the women's game.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
not in my wheelhouse
Right.
until
Right.
I coach minor league women, and then JC Harmon, when they hired me, I'm like, well, I'm vested now,
Right.
and then I
Right.
realized it's a more, in my opinion, it's a more pure game
Yeah.
because they can't do everything the guys do. So,
Right.
so that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's a place for summer basketball, but I think there's different ways that people can get their kids recruited versus spending 5-10 grand a summer and mortgaging their home
Man.
to get them on the circuit. I think that's probably one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
Yeah. And the crazy thing, for me from the training perspective is always having to essentially fight for clients against AAU programs where parents will spend the $5,000 to $10,000 for the kid to sit on the bench from a program and not grow, but then wouldn't spend that same $5,000 to get with someone like me and actually get the skills that would actually take you from sitting on the bench to actually playing and actually getting a real return on investment, right? Everything has to have some type of return on investment. So if you spend $5,000 on a trainer in the summer and your kid goes from 5 minutes on the bench to starting on this so-called top team, and now he's getting an opportunity to get recruited, maybe get a scholarship, then it starts to make a little bit more sense. And then you also put more control into you because it seems the parents feel like playing games is what gets you better. But that is basketball is the only market in the world where folks think that they put the actual finished product ahead of before the work that is needed to have the finished product.
Mhm.
Because baseball and tennis and hockey, they've had trainers and coaches for years and years and years, and people spend money. The basketball training industry is really kind of a 10-year phenomenon. But there's still those parents who won't invest in the training and think that all they need is AAU for the kid to make it. And as you know, sadly, they look up senior year and there's no return on that investment. And they're down, $30,000, $40,000.
And I think, Coach, that there's a balance. Kind of like what you're saying is like, I think people should invest in training. I think that's one of the things that people devalue
Yeah.
is training, and then as you're saying, take that training into a game. Just
Right.
don't think my kids playing 20 minutes a game, and okay, they got in an hour. The whole weekend. It's like, well, first of all, you sitting on the bench, you played an hour.
Right.
And I've seen some entry fees to these tournaments that are 50,
Oh my
75,
Lord.
$100 for an entry fee plus your team fee. They could have gave $100 to you for an
Right.
hour, for 45 minutes to work on their jump shot, to work on
Yeah.
their defense. But they don't want to do that. They think it's just game, 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 game. And it's like there has to be a balance.
Yeah.
There has to be a balance in regards to their teaching and their learning. But you can't tell most of the time right now, you can't tell parents anything.
No.
They
Mm-mm.
will find,
Mm-mm.
well, so and so
Mm-mm.
said,
Mm-hmm.
that this is the best way, so this is what I'm going to do. Well, it's like, okay, well, your kid, and honestly, your kid's going to suck because you don't
Yeah.
want to take advantage of the opportunity, especially when they call coach and ask me what I think, and
Right.
then I
Right.
tell them, then they're like, okay, thanks. Well, you're going to go do, then they go do something else, and it's like, well. what'd you ask me for?
Right.
You know,
Right. Right.
there has to be a balance. You have to be able to get out, get some training, get some training, and then go out and put it to work.
Right.
Same thing now. I'm taking a class to be a mental health coach. Well, I got
Mm.
to take the training
Right.
in order to help people. I can't
Right.
just go out and start helping people and
Right.
then think I'm going to be great and I'm telling them the right things
Right.
when I haven't went through the training.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
so yeah, for me, it's the process, but I don't think people really want to trust the process. They automatically
Mm.
think their kid is going to be Jason Tatum. They automatically think they're
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
James Harden, or they think they're going to be Caitlin Clark. But what
Right.
they don't understand is when they watch her videos, it's like they see her playing at Iowa,
Right.
but they didn't see all the training.
No. No. Of course not.
You
No.
know, they don't want to
No.
see that part when she was in the
No.
barn and she's putting up 100 shots an hour, or she's putting up 200 shots an hour, and she's out practicing on her own with her trainer.
Right.
Then she went into
Right.
the games. They
Right.
don't want to see that part. They want to
No.
see the finished product. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, if you don't want to go out and work on the shooting gun, or if you don't want to go out with a trainer, you're not going to shoot like Caitlin. Just not
No.
going to happen. You
Nope.
know.
Nope. And I think even within the training industry, um is the training industry has almost become like the AAU culture, because there's so much misinformation in terms of what true player development is, right? So there's guys, there's so much what I call ball handling teaching, right? Where it's always the fancy moves or the advanced moves, or what I call 5%ers, right? Things that happen maybe 5% or less in a game, and there's not as much emphasis on the things that happen 95% of the majority of games that you see, right? Just a lot of times just catching, ripping, one dribble, pull up, driving, kicking, two dribble shot, like just things that finishing off 2 feet, 1 foot off, things that you see the majority of the game are not emphasized. And a lot of times these trainers who focus on just teaching the most advanced stuff, the fancy stuff, they become very popular in the city. They're popular on social media. But what they're doing is they're doing a disservice to the game, because what they're teaching is not really helping players get better. It's helping to put money in their pockets and helping to give them clout. And then, again, also a lot of guys that's, who haven't really, played or put in the appropriate level of study and dedication into the art of training to really understand how to put that together. So, I remember an NBA coach, assistant coach said, if you wanted to be an NBA player development coach and you applied to coach for my team, and I went and looked at your social media, if all I saw was two ball drills and footwork patterns and all that type of stuff, I would immediately throw your application in the trash. And you would never get to work at this level. So, with that being said, and you being a college coach, when recruiting players, when evaluating players, what skills are you looking for players who want to play at that college level?
So I'm pretty sure you don't hear this very much. The number one thing is defense.
Yeah.
Do they play defense? I hate getting highlights of offense. When I tell people, when they like, Coach, what should I put in my highlight video? Be versatile. Put some defensive stuff in there. Put your offensive stuff in there, and that's fine. I want to see defense.
Yeah.
Can you rebound? Because if you can play defense and rebound, we can create offense.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
I'm a little old school, coach. I'm 47, so I'm still a little old school of can you master the mid range?
Okay.
The mid range game is a lost art. Is it
Yeah.
boring to some people? Yeah, it's boring. But also, I still win games by focusing on what I call the 7 spots on the floor.
Yeah.
Um, None of my teams, people would laugh at me, coach, because my team first semester last year, we shot 23s the whole game, the whole first
Whole
semester,
semester. Wow. Wow.
23s.
Wow.
And people are like, how come you don't let your girls shoot? Well, we're winning
Mm.
by not shooting 25, 33s a game.
Right.
So if it's not working, all right, we can talk about it. But what we were doing was working. And so I
Yeah.
want to see if kids can play defense. I want to see if they master the mid range.
Yeah.
And I don't like 2 minute clips
Okay.
because, of course, you're going to give me the best you got in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then now when you come to me and I watch a whole game and I'm like, well, you're no, you're not that player. You're not that
Right.
type.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I've had some, I had one that came to me and got all the highlights, boom, looked great and all this stuff. And they didn't realize that I can still pull up on YouTube and then
Mm-hmm.
NFHS
Yeah.
that the school we pay for the subscription to
Right.
NFHS.
Yeah.
So I can watch your game. And
Right.
like finally I'm like, you don't play defense. You have a
Mm.
bad attitude towards your teammates.
Mm.
You have a bad attitude towards your coach. But no,
Mm.
that was one game. No, I peeped out four.
Mm.
So I don't think this is a
Mm.
good spot for you. Um,
Mm.
and so yeah, for me is how you treat your teammates, how you respond to
Mm.
your coach, and then being a basketball official, how do you respond to officials?
Right.
So
Right.
I take
Right.
all that into consideration, coach, honestly, before now I'm can you shoot the three? I mean, it's certain spots on the floor I want to know can you shoot from?
Yeah.
Can you shoot from the corner? Yeah, can you hit the three ball? I mean, that's going to be great, but defense and how you treat people are
Mm.
like the two common denominators. And like I said, can you
Mm.
master the mid range?
That mid range. Yeah.
Um, because some people, their percentage, they're like, yeah, I can shoot the three ball. I had one young lady say, Coach, I can shoot the three. And I looked up her percentage, like your percentage is 12%. I
Yeah.
make more with my eyes closed. Like, if you want to come play for me, your primary is to play defense because you
Right.
cannot shoot the three ball,
Right.
period.
Right.
So she came up, she learned real quick. You do not shoot a three
Nope.
unless the clock is at 2 seconds. And we need that. But other than that, no, your job is to play defense because
Yeah.
12% is not going to do anything for us.
No. 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 It's funny. There's a lot of folks that are delusional. I think, in today's day and age, and I think, character is so important. I did a camp with Phil Beckner, who's Damian Lillard's trainer. He has an organization, Be Better, Be Different, and the big thing that they talk about is teaching character, and integrity in players, and he showed a draft of the last 5 NBA drafts. And basically, he had all the players listed from the first round from the past 5 years. And then he had listed in red all the players who were out the league. And obviously, as we got further and further away from 2023, that list got more and more red. And he said the main factor for the majority of these guys who were drafted in the first round, got the first round contracts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, being out the league within 3 to 5 years is issues of character and integrity.
Mhm.
What are you going to do when the going gets tough? How do you treat your teammates? How do you respond to your coaches? How do you deal? Are you with fame? Are you going to continue to have that same work ethic? Are you going to go get in the gym and do what you're doing and handle your responsibilities on a daily basis? And the difference, and he said, he talks to Damian Lillard, and Damian talks about seeing these guys coming into the league, young guys who have more talent than he has, but not last because of not having that character and that integrity and that dedication. So that's those things are so very important. And I think what I try to do, with my platform in the game, is teach those things, because not only are they're basketball principles, but they're godly principles. They're righteousness principles. And when you can you can help players see the connection between those spiritual principles, and success in life and success on the court. They can really start to see God in a different way. And I think that is so important in the work that we do, is try to be impactful through the game, and promote those ideals to these young people. And hopefully these are things that they can take with them, once the ball stops dribbling. So I think it's always we kind of are in counterculture, um, being basketball coaches and trainers and influencers who believe in God, because many times the culture of a lot of what we see today is a lot of anti-God ideas and principles. So I think, and that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring you on this podcast, and trying to bring other people like that who are in this game but standing on the right things. And we all want to win. We all want success. We all want a nice check, right? We want to be respected and given credit for the talent and the work and the things that we put into the game. But ultimately, all glory goes to God for all those things that we get and accomplish. Because without Him, we wouldn't be able to do these things, man. So I appreciate getting on, you coming on and sharing your basketball history. Definitely excited to see what you got coming up next. Where you land, what school, university, man. Maybe you'll get out west close to me, man. And it's 108 degrees today in Vegas, and I just came from Houston. Now I thought Houston was hot. It was about 100 degrees. It seemed like every day last summer, starting from about June to August. Now about mid-May, it's 110. So I don't know what's going on, but God is good, man.
That's all, we can continue to say is that God is good, and He has a purpose and direction for all of us. And kind of like what you mentioned about, integrity and character. And a lot of these guys, they get to the point where when they're in the NBA or at higher levels, we're not saying, and I know you wouldn't tell them, forget about the people you grew up with, but
Mm.
sometimes you can't take your homies with you.
Right.
Sometimes you
Yep.
can't have your homies be your bodyguards. You can't have your homies be your
Mm-hmm.
financial planners, because now
Mm-hmm.
your homie is your financial advisor, but yet your homie hasn't, he hasn't graduated high school.
Right. Right.
And so
Right.
now you want, him to handle $1 million for you.
Right. Mm.
Teach them,
Mm.
pay for them to go to school. Like Shaq, I read an article about how he paid for 13 of his friends to
Yep.
go back and get their bachelor's degree. Okay,
Yep.
well, help your buddies do that.
Yep.
And that's one thing that I try to do is make sure that I stay humble within my
Mm.
team and continue to give God the glory. And then I give my athletes, because if my athletes didn't buy in to what I
Mm.
wanted them to do, I would not be successful.
Right.
And
Yep.
especially, when you recruit, 12 female athletes that come all the way north to
Uh-huh.
Minnesota, and they were diverse. I had
Yep.
from Houston, Texas. I had one from
Mm.
Kansas City. I had one from Wisconsin. I even had one from Hawaii. I mean, so San Antonio. So we were from
Yep.
all over South
Yep.
Carolina. So
Man.
now you got a diverse group of young ladies coming to a small town, for one goal. And
Right.
that one
Yep.
goal is to play college basketball and to be successful. And
Yep.
they grew within their faith, but then
Yep.
they also
Mm.
grew the program to let people know that we were a team to beat. And honestly, coach, maybe we got a little ahead of ourselves, and God was like, all right, hold on, because we were picked to be number one second semester.
Mm.
As a first year
Mm.
program, we were picked to be number one. And then, what happened was we had several concussions. My starting
Mm.
point guard went down with an ankle injury
Mm.
that, she's still dealing with now.
Mm.
2 years later, she's still dealing with and having another surgery on it. So,
Oh man.
I mean, one game we had to forfeit just because, but we had just two bad concussions and
Man.
the ankle injury, and another athlete got hurt. So even when we went into the playoffs, we limped into the playoffs, and
Yeah.
we still
Yeah.
going to double overtime. So not only do I thank God for the opportunity to give God the glory, I
Yeah.
also praise my athletes because
Yes.
they took care of business.
Yeah.
No matter what was going on, pain or not, cry. Like I had one athlete, like she was literally crying because she was in so much pain. And I'm like, you can't play. She's like, Coach, if you take me out of the game, we're gonna fight. And I'm like, well, I don't want to fight you. So but we joked and we have fun. But she stayed in the game. you know, and we forfeited the next day just because all of my people were injured. We
Yeah.
just, I didn't have
You
enough
have it.
healthy bodies,
Yeah.
you know, but we still won that night.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, so I'm always looking forward to what God has in store, and
Mm.
I love seeing your journey and your podcast and how God is blessing you. So I would just continue to stay faithful, continue to trust God, and yeah, Vegas is hot. We went to Vegas a few years ago, and we went like in July, and yeah, it was hot. But then I think at one point it was one of the years because we've been twice. One of the years it was like 70 degrees, and we saw
Mm.
this brother out on the bus stop like in a parka. It's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
it's
70
like
degrees, boy. That's like Minnesota, -30 out here.
yeah, I was like, did we literally drove around the block to come back and look at this kid, and I'm like, this brother got on a parka and it's 70 degrees. I'm like, man, look, this is time to party for us. Like, but this brother had on a parka.
Man,
I was like, wow, okay.
man. Yeah, it hasn't been 70 degrees out here probably since February. Yeah, it's rough. It's rough.
Yeesh.
But yeah, man, again, it's funny. Well, God will send you to different extremes. But he'll stretch and challenge you. And we don't always get to choose this path. You don't get to choose the cross that you bear, figuratively. So, again, I'm thankful for the opportunities that God's given me here, man. Again, thankful for you. Definitely, we'll continue to stay connected. Obviously in the training game, I always have some players that, I can reach out to you, and wherever you're at, you can take a look at them and see if they can help your program. And I think those relationships between trainers and coaches and those things are so important, and just building a network for these players, man. So, I thank you again. And I definitely look forward to hearing about your next move, and we'll have you back on the podcast again, Coach.
Hey, sir. Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. And thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for joining my first podcast. I appreciate y'all. Y'all are a blessing. Please, we're gonna have. I'll let you guys know when we do it again. All right. We're gonna have another special guest. But again, thank y'all for joining us. Y'all stay blessed. Peaced out. Keep working. All right.